Hi everyone, my name is Sanjay and this is from my sister. This is the place for my new nurses who are now entering their nursing role. Today we're going to talk about finding our employer. I feel like planting the seed and finding an institution that will help you grow and just flourish and blossom is just so important because this is a hard field. It's challenging mentally, physically, emotionally. So it's important to be in the best position as possible. So my first piece of advice is to make sure if you are applying somewhere out of your state, your current state, that you have the appropriate license. For example, I went to school in New York. I graduated with my New York license, but I wanted to work in Florida. So before I could apply anywhere, I had to make sure that my Florida license was paid for, done, I had it in my hand, and then I applied. I recommend that for you as well because usually they will not look at your license. They will not your license. They will not look at your application until you have that license. So do that first. My second piece of advice is when you are looking to apply for institution. For the sake of this video today, I'm going to talk about more of just like a hospital. There are many options for nursing. Uh, you don't have to work in a hospital when you start out with. I do recommend that as a new nurse, you do work in a hospital. You do get that inpatient hands-on experience as a new nurse because right now you are a sponge. You are, you have learned everything in nursing school. You know all the textbook stuff, the concepts, but now you're applying what you learned. And that is so important because now you're like piecing things together and it's going to start making sense. You're going to be having light bulb moments all the time. Um, so it's a great opportunity for you to grow and build that confidence. So when you leave the bedside and you do something else, because you're amazing and you're going to move and do other things, um, you're just going to be so like on it. You're going to just be so great because you already know the basics, you know? So keep that in mind. Um, so when you're applying for the institution, hospital, um, my advice is when you're looking it up, look for hospitals that have a magnet status or they are pathway to excellence. Those are both recognized by the American Nursing Credentialing Center, um, just high rankings for the hospitals. Like the hospitals have met the requirements, they are nurse driven, they, they recognize nurses. Nurses are, included in, hospital initiatives. Patient outcomes are high, quality is high. Like there's just so many benefits of working for a magnet hospital. It's kind of like it kind of blows a non-magnet hospital out of the water. Same thing with Pathway to Excellence. They're not exactly magnet status yet because remember magnet status is the highest top tier. But Pathway to Excellence is like they are, en route to being magnet. It does take time to get there, but they are very, hands-on on being nurse driven as well. So it's great. I highly recommend for you to look there first before you look at other places. um my second piece, or no, my third piece of advice is if you have student loans, make sure you're looking at like a non-for-profit hospital versus a for-profit hospital. Because for a non-for-profit hospital, you can apply for the public service loan forgiveness program because it's a nonprofit organization. If you work for a for-profit, Yes, they might be paying you more, or you may have a sign on bonus, which is great. But if you have student loans, you can't apply for the public loan service or forgiveness loan. So keep that in mind, because that might be like your tipping point as to why you chose one hospital versus the other. Um, my fourth piece of advice is to, once you, even before you apply, you can always call and ask. But even once you apply and you get the interview, make sure you ask about their nurse residency program or their new grad um, program or position, because each institution runs it differently. There are some institutions where you will work at you will be employed by the hospital. You have not found your unit yet. You're just working for the hospital. They rotate you around different parts of the hospital. And upon completion of the residency program, you then decide if there's a unit that's open that you like, you apply for it, interview it, they hire you for that unit. Um, you also have to do like evidence-based projects or some type of process improvement project. There's like some extra like work for you to do. um, so that's one way a residency could go. Another way a nurse residency can go is that you're hired um, to by the hospital to a certain unit, and they just train you, but you have a more in-depth training than you would if you were, like a season nurse. Like instead of 3 weeks, you're more like 3 months, and then you may have other, you know, projects, or there might be scheduled time for you to, meet with like the nurse educator, or, take tours of certain departments, so you get more of like, oh, like this is how, a patient gets admitted from like the admitted to the hospital going through the emergency room, or this is, interventional radiology, or this is where we go to, get imaging. So they all work differently. Not every hospital does the same thing. So make sure you ask, because some hospitals will also say they have like a new grad position or a new grad residency, and really it's just, we're hiring you at entry level. We're going to train you for maybe 4 weeks instead of 3 weeks, and then you're on your own. So make sure you ask, how are they, you know, how is the program going to be when you start? Because at the end of the day, you want to be somewhere where you aren't just pushed into being a nurse by yourself, because that's scary. But you're with someone, you're assigned with someone that's going to help support you, and sure that you have the resources that you need. So always ask that as well. And then my final piece of advice is, when you are applying, well, it's kind of like two pieces of advice, but my final areas of advice are, when you are also applying, make sure, aside from like your health insurance, dental insurance, vision insurance, like make sure, is the job offering continuing education like CE Direct, because you will need that to renew your license. Do they reimburse for a nursing certification? Or do they pay for your nursing certification? Because that just means that you know everything that you need to know about that specialty. And it also means more money for you. So keep that in mind. Um, and also, do they, help with tuition reimbursement? Like, are they helping you like advance your career? Like, if you're starting in with an associate's, are they going to help you pay for your bachelor's? Or if you have your bachelor's, are they going to pay for your master's? If you have your master's, are they going to help you pay for your doctorate? You may have to give them some more time, like you work for them for like a year or two more, but they will pay for it in full. That's a good deal, so that's something to think about as well. And then, to find my final piece, my final touching stone is, when you interview, the day of your interview, I know you're all nervous and everything like that, or you will be nervous, just nerves. After you meet and you talk, and you walk out, don't leave the hospital yet. Now that your nerves have settled, you're going to be more receptive to what's going on. You're going to hear, see, smell things. You're going to be like, oh, wow, I didn't know this before the interview happened. I was just so hyped up. Um, so I recommend that if you're interviewing in the nursing unit, because usually that's when it happens. Either you'll be on like a virtual call or you'll be like in the nursing unit in the manager's office. If you are in the hospital, in the manager's office, on the nursing unit, my advice is go down to the cafeteria, not necessarily the lobby, because in the lobby, like staff members, one, avoid like heavy loaded patient care areas when they're working. Like they kind of just go through the back way. So you're not going to see, you're going to see like everything all pretty, but go to the cafeteria. That's where you will see, co-workers, you will see family members, or visitors. You may see a patient or two, but pay attention to how they are. Like, do they all look like angry? Do they all look like they're in a rush? Do patients, family members, like always like look really distraught? Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, pay attention to that. Also pay attention to the food, because that will make or break it too. Like, if you don't have a good cafeteria and you're working 12 hours, that's a problem. So think about that too. Um, and then after you go to the cafeteria, go back to the nursing unit. If someone says, like, oh, did you forget something? Say, yeah, I left my sweater or whatever. Like, make something up. I don't know. But when you go there, just pay attention to what's going on. Like, did they even notice you when you walked in? Like, were they all that busy that, no one could stop and ask, like, oh, like, how can I help you? Um, do you hear any like snarky comments between nurses? Like, are they nice to each other or are they mean to each other? Because it's a stressful situation to take care of patients, but it's even more stressful when you have a whole bunch of negativity around you. So are these nurses, like, are they helping one another, or are they all, fending for themselves? Are they snarky? Like, is the charge nurse, is she just sitting at the desk scrolling on her phone, or is she like helping patients, or, helping nurses, help their patients? So think about that. Um, yeah. And then like the nurse assistants or med techs, see what they're doing. Are they helping their unit as well, or are they just sitting there, or are they just like hiding away from everyone, or do they really look like they're working? So those are just some things to think about. I feel like as a new nurse, you don't when you're so excited about getting the job and starting, you really kind of just dim those red flags that you see. Like, you might see something that you're like, oh, I really don't like that, but I'm so excited about this job, I'll just deal with it. But you're a new nurse and there are so many openings, you're high in demand. You don't have to settle for a unit where you're like, no, I don't agree with this. Like, you can go somewhere else and be living your best life. Again, there are stressful parts to every job. So don't think that because you're doing like labor and delivery, you're living the best life. Like, labor and delivery has stressful moments too. If you're in ICU, yeah, you might have really critical patients, but there's a difference between uh, a great team versus a bad team that will make or break your success in ICU too. So no matter where you go, you're going to be faced with challenges. My advice to you is for you to just be observant and prepare yourself, and also align yourself to be the most successful as possible. Okay. So that was my final little tidbit for this video. I will talk to you next week. Again, if you want some more content, you can go on my website, www.frommysister.org. I have plenty of blog posts there that you can look at in the meantime. Until then, I will see you next week. Please comment down below any questions you might have because I'll be so happy to answer them. I love you and I just want you to be your best because you're amazing. All right, until next time, take care.